GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Hello and good evening, I'm Leo Carson. This is the Saturday Night Showdown. J.K. Rowling has been listed as one of the UK's top taxpayers. So, are trans activists going to cut her some slack now that they know that she's paying for their gender clinics? And Americans say that the perfect cup of tea has salt in it. Why do you do this to us, America? Also, never mind your tea, we'll be covering the American Civil War kicking off at the Texas border. And a minister has accused the BBC of having left-wing bias. The same minister is going to tell us where bears go to the toilet and what religion the Pope is. Discussing all this and more, my brilliant panel of Bruce Devlin, Paul Cox and Susie Kennedy. But first, the headlines.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. The Business and Trade Secretary says there is a need for new leadership at the Post Office as the outgoing chairman steps down. The government announced Henry Staunton and Kemi Badenoch agreed to part ways with mutual consent. It's after the Post Office has come under fire over its handling of the Horizon IT scandal. Government officials say an interim will be appointed shortly and a recruitment process for a new chair will be launched in due course, in accordance with the Governance Code for Public Appointments. A fire in a 4-storey building near Liverpool city centre is no longer being considered a major incident. That's according to firefighters. Earlier, smoke could be seen across the Merseyside skyline. Merseyside Fire and Rescue Services say successful firefighting tactics have resulted in the fire being greatly reduced. The incident has been scaled down and locals who were evacuated earlier are now being allowed to return to their homes. And Queen Camilla has visited the King in hospital as he recovers from a procedure for an enlarged prostate. The King is resting at the London clinic for a second day after receiving the treatment. Buckingham Palace say he's doing well. It's the same hospital where the Princess of Wales is being cared for following abdominal surgery. Charles's former butler, Grant Harold, told GB News the British public's response to the royal health scares show how much they care.
People always said he was eccentric, he was old-fashioned, out of touch. I never saw that when I worked for him, and I think that's what the public are getting to see, and that's why there's this affection. So the fact that he is having this procedure, obviously the public want to kind of let them know that they're thinking of them. And the same with Princess of Wales. I understand there's been many, many, many letters and cards sent to her wishing her the best of health.
In other news, Grant Shapps says it's our duty to protect the navigation of the Red Sea after a British-backed oil tanker was hit by a Houthi missile. The vessel in the Gulf of Aden went up in flames on Friday after it was targeted by Houthi rebels. A blaze in Marlin Luanda's cargo tank was extinguished with the help of Indian, US and French Navy vessels, and all crew are reported to be safe. And the United Kingdom is pausing funding for the United Nations Gaza Aid Group following allegations that staff participated in the October 7th attacks. The Foreign Office says the UK is appalled by allegations that UNRWA staff were involved in the heinous act of terrorism that the UK government has repeatedly condemned. The UK is suspending any future funding, as are Finland, the US, Italy, Australia and Canada, following a review. Representatives from the Gaza Relief Agency have pleaded with allies to reverse the decision. A spokesperson for the Foreign Office says we remain committed to getting humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza who desperately need it. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome to the Saturday Night Showdown. This was the week that the Royal Mail said that they wanted to go down to 3 days a week. Although, after running the numbers through their IT system, they said they actually wanted to do 17 days a week and you're under arrest. And this week, I learned from an advert that if a white man and a black woman have kids, they come out Chinese. It's great to know. And pet owners were asked if their pets were trans or non-binary. Look, if a cat is trans, we know who's really making the decision. The owner. It's just like trans kids. There's no way a cat can be non-binary. Cats don't have TikTok. Where would they get the idea? And it was revealed that Nicola Sturgeon called Boris a clown. I guess Boris does have a tiny little car. Well, it looks tiny next to Sturgeon's camper van. It's a rare moment of accuracy for Sturgeon. I guess even a stopped clock is right 2 times a day. Sturgeon's WhatsApp messages can't be retrieved, according to her new head of data management, Rebecca Vardy. BBC Comedy was accused of being completely biased by a Tory minister. And it is. A study showed that of all the BBC comedians that have a political stance, 98% of them are left-wing and 2% are Jeff Norcott. It's not been a great week for the BBC. A scientist told an inquiry that the BBC lied about the severity of COVID to get support for lockdown. That's another conspiracy theory that's come true. Maybe we should rename conspiracy theories spoiler alerts. In America, the establishment attempts to bring Trump down continued. A jury ruled that Trump has to pay one of his accusers $83 million for defamation. It won't stop him, though. Trump's biggest weapon is Joe Biden, who seemed to be having trouble with his teleprompter.
My professor, well, I won't get into my professor. But look, my predecessor, though.
Don't worry, Joe, reading from a teleprompter can be very flubble, and he's struggling to make it to the end of his own speeches.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
I've seen adverts for donkey sanctuaries that were less pitiful than that. I think we'd get a clearer idea of what he's saying if he spoke to us via a Ouija board. There's a face-off in Texas right now where the Texas Guard are trying to enforce border control and the Democrat government guards are trying to open the border to let in illegal immigrants. Biden said, "Let them in. I need their votes." Speaking of border control, it was revealed that our government spent £36 million on private boats to pick up illegal immigrants and bring them to Britain. The Tories on TV say, we're going to stop these criminal people smuggling gangs. But the Tories in real life go, we're going to be a criminal people smuggling gang. Politicians said this week that British youth might have to fight in a war. Are you insane? British young people wouldn't last a minute against the Russians. They wouldn't even need weapons. The Russians could just misgender them and they'll fall to the ground writhing. You won't need bullets. Just throw something at them with gluten in it. But how can we defend our borders? Russians could just get on a boat and come here. And not only are we not allowed to stop them, we'll have to put them up in a 5-star hotel. I have a solution to our military recruitment crisis and our cross-channel migrant crisis. Conscript illegal migrants. Before you get citizenship, you've got to serve 25 years. A former Janjaweed militant is going to be way better against the Russians than our young people who've been indoctrinated to hate their country and see patriotism as evil. No wonder nobody's signing up for the military. If they ever planted a flag, somebody would come along and nag them for being colonialist and have toxic masculinity. Unless it's a pride flag, obviously, which seems to be the only flag allowed to fly in Britain. I'm joined tonight by Paul Cox, Susie Kennedy and Bruce Devlin. Paul, I want to talk about this standoff at the Texas border. It's insane. I can't believe it's just escalated from nothing. Basically, Texas was enforcing the border, putting up razor wire, and then, Biden took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered that the federal troops could go in and cut the razor wire. I don't really understand why Biden's doing this, because the border is becoming a huge issue for Americans. 35% of voters say it's their #1 issue.
Yeah, why would you want to freely let illegal immigrants into your country when you're already overprescribed on that front anyway? It's really interesting because Texas itself is like a separate country almost, like many of the states.
Yeah.
And they have decided upon themselves, and of course the Texans, of all people, are likely to do this, they've decided upon themselves that they can defend their own border.
Yeah.
It won't be long before they're defending the north border from the Americans, and they just declare independence.
People fleeing Democrat states. But I mean, this is something that's affecting Democrat states as well, because of course the governor Abbott in Texas is busing the illegal immigrants when they come into Texas. He buses them to Democrat cities such as New York and Los Angeles, and says, you know, basically, you said you're sanctuary cities. You won't let me close my borders. Well, here you go. Here's the consequences of those actions, Bruce.
Where are they getting the razor wire from? No, seriously.
Have you been trying to buy it for your garden?
Yeah, I have actually.
I know you live in Scotland. But...
No. I know a woman tried to touch my hair today in a restaurant, and I wish I had razor hair. No, she did. She came up to me and she went, "Do you mind if I touch your hair?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." And she went, "No. Do you mind if I just?" And I said, "No, because I'm not giving you my consent." And she wouldn't go away. So if I had razor wire, I might keep some in my bag.
Yeah, it sounds like you need.
I don't know.
Sounds like you need a taser more than razor wire. Razor wire's a bit late, unless you put it around the... Yeah,
like mace. Element to the eyes.
I mean, I didn't expect us to be talking about hairspray in a story about.
No, I think it's important. I think it's important to see it from all angles. In all honesty, I don't think we can be too one note about this.
But this is election year, Susie. I mean, do you think Biden? Part of the reason is he's bringing in. We've seen this before in the UK. The Blair government admitted. I think it was Andrew Neither admitted that they wanted to open the borders to bring in people who would vote for Labour. It's a way of tilting the electoral scales in their favour, and that's what Joe Biden wants to do.
I don't know what's going on, because here they're saying bring your ID. You've got to bring your ID. So they want people to vote that are registered. But I don't understand what's going on in America. It's like they want Trump to win.
Yeah, everything they do.
I don't know if it's like a double bluff. You know, you're thinking, oh, he's definitely the murderer. And it's like, is it Saltburn or whatever it is at the end? I was like, oh, my God. You know, the twist, not going to ruin it.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But it shocked me. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but it shocked me. So here, I'm sitting here thinking, are they trying to lose? Because they had 4 years to get somebody. Yeah. And they've just left this guy.
Do you think, Paul, that they're playing a game where Joe Biden, the only person he can possibly win against is Trump, because Trump's such a divisive figure, because he's a cool guy who likes to party, but not everybody sees that. But so do you think they're trying to manoeuvre Trump into position to be running against them, but they might have overplayed that hand a little bit, because now Trump is like actually more popular than Joe Biden. I think he's 3 points clear.
I just cannot imagine they're that clever. Susie's absolutely right. It seems ridiculous. The things that they're doing seem to be playing straight into Trump's hands. Yeah. And I don't think there's any sort of 4D, 3D, any type of D chess going on here. I think that much like the left everywhere else in the Western world, they've decided who the oppressor and the oppressed are. Yeah. And they've gone, the people trying to climb over the razor wire are the oppressed, so we need to let them in. Right. What they're not looking at is what the consequence of that is, because that doesn't form part of their logic at all. To me, it just looks ridiculous. Yeah. It looks to me as if they've totally miscalculated what they're doing on their border. Yeah. And they just expected the Texans, of all people, to stand back and accept it. Of course, Texas, in places like Austin, has become quite democratic. Yeah. Because a lot of people have moved out of California and they've come to places like Austin because the taxes are lower. Talking to people going to Texas, this isn't Liberals moving to Austin. This is truckers from all across America, because 25 Republican states have backed Texas in this. It really is looking like it could, become a secessionist issue, like almost a Civil War issue. These are truckers going to Texas to show their support. They might get treated like Trudeau treated the truckers in Canada.
Their bank accounts.
Yeah, they'll have their bank accounts closed. I'm sure they've all had their money changed into cash.
And they probably have.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to take that chance again. I mean, that's the trouble with electronic banking. People like Trudeau can come in and punish people. But I mean, you can see it's great to see people waving American flags without being ashamed.
Film, right? It's a Rocky film.
To be fair, that could just be the morning traffic. If there weren't people waving, you'd have absolutely no idea.
I thought that was people going to see Madonna at Madison Square Gardens, because that's very hard to get a ticket.
And waiting for 3 hours for her to... Apparently she was stuck in the stairlift.
Poor Madonna. But that is similar to, you still have pro-independence people in Scotland. Is it Bridges for Indy?
Right.
Something for Indy. And along the M8, they will stand and they'll hold their flags and to not honk if you're horny, but honk if you're with them. So, a lot of honking.
Honk if you're a honker. That's the slogan that'll carry Scotland. It's not quite William Wallace and freedom.
Honk if you're a
honk if you're a honker.
In England, we just get happy birthday, Michelle, across like the M1 as you're driving up. We don't get all these flags and stuff. We just get messages. Will you marry me?
On bed sheets.
Yeah, exactly, on bed sheets.
Stained.
Happy 33rd birthday, Nan.
Exactly.
We've seen issues like this, things that start off as a small issue or, that seem like a legal issue, that, things that the government think it can solve in the courts. I think Biden is going to the courts to try and get them to put the state guards under his direct control, so they can't face off against the federal guards. But the thing in America is everyone's armed. Everyone's got guns. So I mean, what it says in a bit of paper, it might not. This could be the real January the 6th.
Yeah, I do remember that though. When I go to America, because I was born in America, I may sound like I'm English. I learnt very well.
You look American.
Accent. I look American. But I forget that because you're in traffic and you're a bit like, oh, fuck it all. You don't say it, do you? You don't want to have a little bit of a tear up because they'll just get a gun out. And you do forget. You do forget. You do in America, you're like, OK, this guy that's like got a gun. Yeah. But here we've got knives. So
we've got knives. So,
I guess it's the same sort
so
of
if our I mean, this would be like Birmingham Council facing off against the UK military. I think my money would be on the UK military, even if they did have knives.
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to see down there? I don't know. Can you imagine Americans fighting Americans with guns? I mean, would it get that far?
It's happened before, Paul.
Yeah, I know, but just we say the year, and that makes it like it should be better. Like it's 2024.
Yeah, actually, it sounds worse. Everybody's crazy in 2024. Everybody's in this vicious tribal culture war. I mean, it'd be interesting to see it, how it plays out, how it spills over into real life. Are you looking forward to it from the point of view of something to talk about?
Well, I mean, it keeps my career going. As long as I'm not involved, I'm 4,000 miles away. They can fight each other. I mean, I'm not that angry. The only thing that's ever made me angry is security tags on cheese. Do you remember that? Remember that story we had on
Is it stopping you stealing cheese?
Yeah, if you can't, I mean, it's a human right. Look at me. You should be able to steal cheese.
That's made you angry.
Yeah, honestly.
What a blessed life.
There was a story on Headliners about 6 months ago. They'd started putting security tags on
tags on cheese. Then?
Yeah, no, I was trying to, but now you can't. And
you can't steal cheese anymore. Well, some people who don't need to steal any cheese are the UK's top taxpayers. They've just been announced, and you guessed it, they're all terrible people who don't care about the country. I'm only joking. They're great, and some of them pay an awful lot of tax. Also, have a look at this. It's blind long jumping.
Men's long jump, T11. Lex Gillette.
Find out what happens to the blindfolded long jumper after the break. I'm sure he's fine.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now I know you're itching to see what happened to that blindfolded high jumper.
Men's long jump, T11, Lex Gillette. His fourth round jump. Well, that's got it.
Athletes struggling here with the noise from the crowd.
Oh, I can feel that. Anyway, it's time now for Cursed or Blessed. Me and my brilliant panel will look at three big stories and decide who are the week's winners and who are the losers. First up, we've got J.K. Rowling. She might be hated by progressive leftists, but she's bankrolling them by paying tens of millions of pounds in tax. The top 100 taxpayers in the UK have been announced, and she comes in at number 31. Also, we're seeing the wheels come off the gender ideology movement as male rapists exploit it to get sent to women's prisons, young people regret transitions, and males elbow women out of women's sports. I mean, Paul, do you think woke people owe J.K. Rowling an apology?
I don't think it's within their abilities to apologise. Also, she's got nothing to apologise for, has she? I know we're asking whether they should apologise, but J.K. Rowling's not a transphobe. There's no evidence that J.K. Rowling's a transphobe.
She's never actually said anything transphobic. She's been very supportive of the trans community.
They should bring a tax onto people to prove that she's a transphobe. All she's ever done is protect women's spaces.
Yeah.
If we protect, and if you come up and you and I talk about protecting children's spaces, nobody's going to have a go. I mean, they might wonder why we're talking about it. But
yeah, why are you talking about it, Paul?
I don't know. This isn't live, is it?
No. First thing comes up, cheese and kids.
Cheese and kids. What has happened to me?
So worried.
This is my career. But the point is, she has absolutely nothing to apologise for.
Yeah.
She's standing on a moral ground here, where she's uncancelable. She's written the greatest set of children's books since, you know, whoever, Roald Dahl. Or
I think Roald Dahl would be pretty annoyed at you saying
exactly.
that.
But she's been extremely successful, and she's been able to use that platform to stand up for women-only spaces. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing transphobic about that.
And she could live in Monaco and not pay any tax.
She could do, but she chooses not to. She pays tax here. She seems to me like quite an honourable person.
Yeah.
There's nothing about her to me that seems wrong or dodgy in any way. The irony here, of course, is that she's paying tens of millions of pounds in tax, and of course that money arguably is going towards some of these clinics which are chopping off children's bits.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like you just walk in and they. But I mean, you have to
that's
wait
10 minutes after.
You have to wait at least a week for the paperwork. But I mean, Susie, some of the people are paying tax. I was amazed to see the top pair. This Russian finance guy called Gurko, I think he's called. He was paying £75,000 an hour. I mean, do you think if we could just get, like, maybe a few more of them, none of the rest of us would have to pay any tax?
That's what I'm worried about. So I'm thinking, like, I don't earn anywhere near that, and I'm worried, you know, it's January, I've got to pay my tax bill.
Yeah.
I haven't got to. But You know what I mean? Want to, because I don't want to go to jail. But I'm just thinking, I can't imagine that their tax bill is more than I would ever see.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even fathom that amount of money.
I understand.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like Anthony Joshua, no disrespect to Anthony Joshua, but I couldn't believe how much money he's got.
Yeah.
Like,
how much money has he got?
He paid like 160 million he made last year.
Whoa!
I know, read it. I read what we're saying.
Yeah. I don't. I've no idea. I'm Joe Biden here. Feed stuff in a teleprompter.
I read the story.
I'm coming here with your rules.
I don't have to mention cheese or anything. I read the story.
Because Ed Sheeran has also paid a lot of tax.
A lot of tax, yeah.
And I think...
almost £40 million.
Yeah, and that's a huge amount. I mean, we'll never see that in our lifetime. But there was the misdemeanour with Bernie Ecclestone. Well, no offence, you might... whatever.
Who paid 600-odd million pounds.
But then, was he not missing 330 million? And then had to pay that back.
And he had to pay a fine as well.
Yeah,
so they caught him.
Because they were going to say...
Dated back to 1928, I think.
Yeah, was it tax fraud?
I think it was 10 years of evasion, they would call it.
Or avoision. Avoision. They're not sure if it's...
Is this because he lived in Switzerland? Did he live in a tax haven?
It was something to do about foreign earnings that he thought wasn't...
Anybody else?
I mean, I think somebody like Bernie Ecclestone should probably get an accountant to do his taxes for him. That's what we've learned from this. And talking of learning things, the UK COVID inquiry has learned that the BBC was allowed to misrepresent the risk posed by COVID to most people to boost public support for lockdown. Who'd have thunk it? Another COVID conspiracy theory falls. First it was face masks, then the lab leak, then natural immunity, then vaccine harm, and now this. COVID conspiracy theories are coming true all over the place. Susie, do you feel a bit cheated by what you're told during lockdown?
Do you know what? The whole COVID thing was done because I flew out, and I remember being on the plane. I don't know if you guys flew during COVID, but everyone just kept eating and drinking because you could take your mask off if you ate and drank.
Really?
Yeah, during COVID. So you're sitting there, so I'd just be like, ding dong. I'd be like, right, and just keep drinking and eating. And everybody on the plane was just eating and drinking.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get COVID if you were eating or drinking.
Where did you fly to?
Anywhere, so I could have a drink. Just anywhere.
Just
Anywhere, so I'd take the mask off, so really, anywhere.
Well, yeah, because some places loosened the rules before the UK did. I did gigs in Dubai because after not working for months and months and months, I was just desperate to get on a stage and shout abuse at people. I mean, Bruce,
I did that all through COVID. I got up on stages and just screamed, howling into the wind,
It's just a Scottish pastime. So.
Absolutely, yeah. But we're having the COVID inquiry in Scotland, which seems to have brought out quite a lot. Carol Vorderman seems quite keen on tweeting about it and stuff. And some of the stuff that Nicola had said I actually found very funny. And I did tweet her and I said, I don't know if you are planning to do the Fringe this year, but give me a call if you want a writer. We've got some great base material here. As yet, she's not been back in touch, but I'm seeing her on Tuesday.
But the Scottish COVID inquiry as well is bringing out some stuff like Nicola Sturgeon was weaponising COVID to use it as a political tool to gain independence. You know, she wasn't making decisions based on, is this the right thing to do for the people? She was making decisions based on, is this going to give us some sort of differentiator with the British government? Is this something we can drive a wedge and use to beat the independence drum?
She ran her whole COVID campaign like a jilted lover. like you know, she was always trying to get back at Westminster or Boris. She'd have a nanosecond look at what they said, and if they said they were going to wear their pants, she'd say, "Everyone, no pants." Yeah. She would just say anything. It's not just cheese I can talk about. No. It's pants as well.
In fairness to her, right? I mean, you say she's jilted lover. Boris, I mean, she could have been a jilted lover. That's so many of them. You never know, right?
If they'd had one of those COVID parties. Moving on, the Americans have ruined another British tradition. Not only did they refuse to speak our language properly, but they're now putting salt in our tea. Michelle Francie, who has written a book on the molecular science behind a good cup of tea, believes the addition is necessary to reduce the bitterness of the drink. Has America gone too far? I mean, Bruce, I understand you drink a cup of tea from time to time.
I don't. I serve tea.
You serve tea?
The piping hot tea. I don't understand why you'd put salt in a cup of tea. It's the same with those things I hate on Twitter. I don't care whether you put jam or cream on a scone first. Some people can't even have a scone, let alone have jam and cream in it. And it's the same with that regional thing of what we would call a bread roll. You know, it's a picture of a roll and chips.
Right,
and they're like, what do you call that? And it's like unoriginal and boring. Will you move on? So why, when they do have... Now, OK, we're a couple of fairly, relatively well-nourished ladies, but when American has...
I'd just like to, for anybody who can't
talking
see,
to
because he's talking to Paul, not to Susie. So.
I'm joshing.
No, that's fine. It's just...
God almighty. But that's the thing, you have really... Why would you put more sodium in your diet unnecessarily?
Yeah, putting salt in the tea, when that's something that's supposed to quench your thirst.
I'm not sure that is salt. Like, if you, I've seen some of these restaurants' secret cameras, and you'll be like, "What's that salty taste in my tea?" They're like,
oh my God! Now I've got a horrific image. Strangely alluring, but still horrific. The United States Embassy for the UK has actually released a press release after the scientist said that you should put salt in your tea, saying today's media reports of an American professor's recipe for the perfect cup of tea has landed our special bond with the United Kingdom in hot water. Tea is the elixir of camaraderie, a sacred bond that unites our nations. We cannot stand idly by as such outrageous proposals threaten the very foundation of our special relationship. Therefore, we want to ensure that the good people of the UK, that the unthinkable notion of adding salt to Britain's national drink is not official United States policy, and it never will be. Let us unite in our steeped solidarity and show the world that when it comes to tea, we stand as one. The US Embassy will continue to make tea in the proper way by microwaving it. Now, do you think they're not just heading for a civil war, but this is another war with Britain?
I mean, I love that, by the way. That's a lovely bit of humorous trolling from the US Embassy there. Like, they haven't got enough on their plate, but they've dedicated someone to do that. And I like that. You know, when the world is a bin fire, humour is what we need.
Throw some tea on it.
Absolutely. But this is just another thing you add to the list of things people with dementia and Americans do. Because putting salt in your tea...
Yeah,
I mean, how can that... Obviously, it must be a joke. I mean, it was another scientist, so he's an expert, so he's an idiot. But how could that taste good?
Apparently... Have you tried it?
No.
We should try it. See, we should have tried it.
I didn't even think of that. We should have tried some tea with salt in it. It's such a disgusting
someone
idea.
do that for us in the break?
We can maybe in the break, we can maybe get somebody to boil a kettle for us, put some salt in it. Apparently it takes the bitterness out of the tannins. But I don't know, I quite like the...
It might be a taste sensation. We might be sitting there slagging it off and go,
I might have to retract. There might be an official apology at the end of the show.
You know what?
I'd like to apologise.
English people might be drinking salt in their tea. Well, that's it for this section, but join us in a couple of minutes to find out what happened to these mountaineers.
Hey, seriously, is this safe? 50-50. 50-50, what, like 50% we live, 50% we die?
I'm sure they're all right. Up next, what gender is your dog? Yes, that is now a question being asked. See you after the break.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. Before we drink our salty tea, let's see what happened to those mountaineers.
Hey, seriously, is this safe? 50-50. 50-50, what, like 50% we live, 50% we die? 50-50. Bro, what the? Oh my God.
The dangers of mountaineering, don't worry, everybody was fine there. Now, we've got 3 cups of tea from a guest. That's not because, you know, in some sort of Putin-esque way I'm trying to poison them. It's not because I'm afraid. I just thought, we've got the sachets of salt there. Do you want to put your salt in your tea?
Thank you.
Give it a nice stir. And tell us how. What, I just drink the salt on its own. I've got herbal tea. I don't think it works.
Do you
for
put the salt on the back of your hand?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. You should do it on the back of our hand.
Like a tequila.
Yeah.
It is actually, I don't know if the cameras can pick it up, but it is actually salt. Salt from M&S, by the way.
Yeah, no, we got
Other
it in,
salt is available.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
not any
do you want to give it a stir and see?
Sorry.
See if it's good.
I think I need more salt, doesn't it? Taste
You need
like
more
tea.
salt?
Tastes like
No,
tea.
that's...
Have you stirred it yet?
Tastes like tea.
Have you stirred it?
Oh, do you know what it's
nice?
like drinking the sea?
It's a little bit like someone's wrung their flannel out in your tea.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they? What were they doing with that flannel?
Well, this is it. What did you clean last?
Your teacup. Can I try the?
I'll have another go, actually.
Can I actually like to try it?
I think it's a bit like warm seawater.
Like I could.
Yeah, that's what it's like, isn't it?
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. It's salty. It's disgusting. Why would it taste like? You know what it tastes like? It tastes like salty tea. Anyway, a Church of England primary school allowed a 4-year-old boy to join as a girl. The child's sex was hidden from classmates who were described by parents as traumatised when they found out. The trans-identifying child had been flashing their willy at girls. He's believed to have told them in the toilets about dark spirits that will suck their souls out, and has said it's a deep secret that she is actually a boy, but they mustn't tell anyone. I mean, it sounds like a future Green Party candidate, but it's slightly worrying that, you know, these kind of things are being indulged at schools. This is a very young child who's clearly got, you know, very active imagination, and instead of, you know, being told, that's nice, dear, finish your chips, he's been told, yes, great, you're a woman, you're a dinosaur, whatever it is, and being indulged, Susie.
But he actually did say, I'm a boy. So
Yeah.
he knows he's a boy.
Yeah.
And, like, in school, maybe my school's a bit weird, but I remember, like, everyone showing their little willies to each other and, like, they were a bit like, look what I've got, look what I've got.
I don't want to ruin your school years, but I think that was mainly because it was you.
You know,
I mean, Because they weren't doing that to me, Susie, I can tell you.
Paul, we can sort it out after this. I'll balance it out.
Were you doing it?
I'm really, you're in your flow then. It just, sorry, I'm going to
I just visualised it. Were you in my school?
No.
You know what I mean? Kids are a bit like, you know, they're innocent. They're 4. I mean, you've got kids. You know, they're babies. They don't know. They're like, oh, look what I've got. Oh, look at you got nipples. You got, and the kids actually said, I'm a boy.
Yeah.
So it knows it's a boy. It's the parents. It's all this.
Yeah, it feels like a sort of social contagion. That's sort of, kids are getting these ideas from TikTok, from reading accidental copies of The Guardian that have been discarded by communists. They're getting these ideas, and they're bringing them into into their life. You know, when you're 4 years old, you don't have a clear idea of what life is. So this kid's getting an idea of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be trans, but it's playing, and
He doesn't even know what his willy is really. A 4-year-old. It's just like.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce, what do you make of this?
I'm more interested in the dark spirits sucking out the souls. To be quite... No, I am. Because it's... Where does a 4-year-old happen upon that level of vocabulary? Because if you think about it as well, it's also really advanced. It's very adult language, as far as I can see. Obviously, I'm not a parent. I don't know if that is obvious or whatever, but, I'm not a parent, so I don't know what it's like to bring up a kid sort of thing. But I can remember what I had access to at the age of 4, which was precious little, including love. But I think that's the thing, because obviously then the child, whoever the child is, knew how to coerce or threaten or whatever, and that to me just seems a wee bit spooky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that you bring up, because this kind of adult language, I mean, that would be a sort of safeguarding trigger. The fact that it's such adult themes, adult language. This isn't the normal stuff that you're not going to read Open Spot Goes to the Beach and find out about dark spirits sucking out your soul.
No, you wouldn't. First of all, Bruce, you'd make a great parent.
Oh, thank you.
You genuinely would. I'm sure you make a great uncle.
But I am a very good uncle.
Yeah, I imagine you are.
It's got a bit Carey-Sherry right now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I just didn't want anyone out there to think that Bruce wouldn't make a good daddy. But
I'm just going to ignore that.
Bruce, I see you as more of an otter.
Thank you.
Isn't this a great metaphor for the whole trans thing? Sort of thing that in 100 years' time, if they ever really wanted to expose this ideology for what it has become, they would tell this story.
Yeah.
They allowed a 4-year-old boy to go to a girls' school and, talk about his willy like it was some magic wand. And it was a secret. It wasn't just a secret amongst the children. It was a secret amongst the adults that found out as well.
Yeah,
if you read the story, there was an adult that was a teaching assistant, I think, at the school, and was sworn to secrecy, so you mustn't tell anyone.
There wasn't a letter sent out saying, oh, by the way, this is going to happen, so please, be aware of it and be accommodating. I mean, it's a crazy thing to find out, as a secret. Another crazy thing that's been happening in the world of gender ideology this week is an animal talent agency which procures animals for TV and film, to film them, not to eat them in the catering department, has decided to ask pet owners the burning question: is your dog gender neutral or non-binary? Apparently they say it's to make it more inclusive. Urban Paws said that the gender neutral category had been removed as it was included in the form by mistake. I mean, it's a pretty funny mistake. I mean, Bruce, cats can't be non-binary. Cats are all girls, and dogs are boys. Everybody knows that.
Right, well, I had a dog for nearly 17 years and she was a girl, and I remember that someone had said to me, do you not think it is transphobic? I'm sure those were the words. It was about the time that people thought that a gender reveal thing for a baby was transphobic, and a woman had said to me, do you think it's transphobic raising your dog as a girl? And I said, well, I have no problem with trans people and all that kind of stuff. She's a girl. She was a bitch. She was the last one in the litter.
Yeah.
Her name was Smidgen, and I called her a wee girl, and that was that.
Yeah.
But then I also remember a woman being on GMB, Good Morning Britain, saying that she thought it was appalling that we don't ask guide dogs their consent before they start their training. So, genuinely, that was a debate with Susanna and whoever else. So it's just like, I'm not necessarily sure you're going to get the answer that you want from... although an animal will understand you perfectly, even though you don't speak, I don't think they can tell you as to whether...
Yeah, And yeah, cats and dogs. I mean, they can't give consent because they're animals. They're not that. They don't have that sense of awareness and sense of self to that extent. And I mean, Susie, this sort of reminds me brings it back to the trans kid. If you got a kid who is saying he's trans, where's he getting that idea? It's like the kid's not coming up with it organically. You know, after
you call your cat a bitch.
You know, age 20 or something.
No, but that's what you call a female dog, a bitch.
I think we should campaign about that. Stop calling animals bitches.
Right, it's
hanging
what
them
they're called,
bitches, you know what I mean? I just think, like, we don't want that. It's like...
It's a good point. It's just a really unlikely person in the middle of that argument to be Bruce.
I think you're advocating on the part of dogs.
But the thing is about the gender of animals, I always get animals' genders wrong.
Right.
Like, if I see a pink collar, I think, OK, it's a girl dog. And they're like, oh, no, it's a boy.
Well, they're wrong.
And then you feel bad because you're like, why's it got a pink collar? Oh, no, I'm being sexist. And so,
they're just messing. They just want that argument if they're putting a pink collar on a male dog. But do you think, you know, with some of the gender ideology stuff, it's coming from the parents? I mean, it's definitely coming from the parents if it's a dog. Because the dog hasn't turned around and said...
It's all coming from the parents.
You think the dog's turned around and be like, ruff, 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 I think I'm a girl today. You know, no, it's the most it can say is sausages.
Which is a boy thing.
Yeah. Anyway, it's time for a breather, but can you guess what happens next with this dancing lady, man, person? I'm not sure anymore. I'll see you after the break. Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Let's see what happened to that dancing person. I'm sure they'll be fine. So, yeah, make sure you're not standing on a bunch of invoices before you try jumping around. Now, next up, young people have ruined everything again. Generation Z, that's people under 30, have ruined the world once again. The self-entitled little blighters are now refusing to pay tax. Well, not quite, but they're drinking and smoking less, so inadvertently reducing the size of the state coffers and the amount of duty and tax they claim back off cigarettes and alcohol. Is it our patriotic duty to drink and smoke more to fund the NHS? I mean, I think this is very selfish of young people not to drink and smoke and booze and all the rest of it. When I was young, I did plenty of that because I knew we had a lot of doctors and nurses to pay for. Bruce, I mean, did you do your bit?
I continue to do my bit. I think it's very important. No, I know, it's selfless. I mean, you've no idea. But yeah, no, they do seem to be on a very different trajectory than we were when we were growing up, sort of thing. There's almost an element of piety in some of it.
You know what, there is, and it's almost like, you know, we had the Victorian era where everybody presented a very pious and very proper image, but then underneath it all, people were visiting prostitutes and getting syphilis and all the rest of it. And I feel like this generation is the same, maybe without the syphilis.
I think they're not dealing with the syphilis. I don't think they're interested in the syphilis. I don't think they want to have a good time. I don't know. I mean, it's up to the individual, isn't it? But yeah, they do seem very different. And when you are speaking to, particularly if they happen to be, I don't know, vegan or non-drinkers or whatever, they're very forceful. They're almost militant with it.
Yeah.
But that's up to them.
Yeah, maybe it's just social media, Paul, that's made everybody sort of able to see and judge each other.
Well, you know, I spent those sort of formative years in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s. And there were, you know, beautiful people around, but there were models. There were people that were supposed to look beautiful. Not everybody. The sort of people you aspired to were kind of the, you know, maybe the Britpop, the Kate Moss, the heroin chic, and the sort, you know,
Did you have a heroin chic period?
I never did. I went straight into the Big Mac chic period. but you know, the role models then were kind of rock and roll, and we had ladettes. Women were more liberated by drink and behaving like boys, apparently.
Yeah.
But I mean, they still do that now, but it's very different. But that now every child, 15, 16-year-old, has to aspire to look model-like.
Yeah.
Because everybody they're presented with on Instagram and TikTok, you know, is in great shape, skin's amazing. I mean, because of filters largely, it just wasn't a pressure on us back then.
Although it's weird that, you know, at the same time as people feel all this pressure to look really good and they're getting cosmetic surgery and, you know, getting eating disorders and stuff, the models that a lot of big brands are choosing, like the cover of Sports Illustrated, used to always be absolutely, you know, smoking. And now you look at Sports Illustrated and it's like, well, this could be Weight Watchers Monthly. You know what I mean? They're trying to push some sort of body positive, you know, like...
Just me in a bikini. Look at me.
Literally, they had a transgender cover star who...
It was me, Leo.
Yeah, but if we shaved you and stuck you in a swimsuit, I think...
Just imagine me all shiny like a cue ball.
Like a Scottish sheep shearing session, like... That's a terrible conversation to have with the taste of salty tea in my mouth. But,
which really wasn't pleasant. No.
I can still taste it.
Yeah,
I can still taste salty tea.
It's embedded in my tongue.
Yeah, I feel this is like a
violated.
Psychological strike by America.
I've had this taste quite a lot. I'm kind of used to it. But
it's Saturday night.
I think what the kids said is your dirty minds. I just eat a lot of popcorn. So I eat popcorn. I think with the kids though, that a lot of them are smoking weed because whenever I walk down the streets, I'm just like.
There is a big smell of weed.
Yeah, I feel like the world smells like weed in London.
Right,
so I don't know if kids are just like, I'm not going to have alcohol. That was our generation of alcohol, ladettes, Liam Gallagher.
Maybe they're having edibles.
Edibles are taken. It's a different. They're still getting high.
So we need to somehow legalise weed like they've done in America and tax it, and then we'll be able to fill this gap in the tax. We could also put tax on vaping. I know lots of people vape now.
Tax on. Surely there's humongous tax on.
I don't think there is huge tax on it, not to the extent of cigarettes.
And alcohol,
with cigarettes, the tax is to dissuade people from smoking cigarettes and actually move them to vaping because it's seen as better.
This is the thing. If I'm not smelling weed, I'm smelling Hubba Bubba strawberry flavour. Because that's the two smells you get in London.
Yeah.
Vaping or weed.
Yeah.
So they're still getting high.
Yeah. They're just using different routes. But are they as because they seem to be, you know, like you were saying before, a bit more pious. And this might be why they don't want to go to war. The military's having huge amounts of problems
They're on weed. They're not thinking of war.
Well, if they're smoking weed, they don't want to go to war.
Don't get up.
This conscription thing, where they're all, you know, the young people have got to go to war. It's all right for us because we're very unlikely to go, but. If anyone was to ask us, we probably wouldn't want to go either. You know, I've been trying to write material about this week. Yeah. There aren't loads of 40-year-olds out there going, God, you know what? I wish I was 21 and can go to war.
I'd quite like to go for a bit. You know, be like a guy, hang out.
Be the photographer right back on a zoom lens.
Yeah, hang out of a helicopter for a bit. You know,
I could be like Darling in Blackadder. You know, sort of the officer type, and just. Shouting orders and eating,
and young people aren't having as much sex as they used to. And I don't just mean with us. They're not having as much sex with each other, which I don't know. It's kind of, I guess, from a health point of view, it's good. But I feel like it's Louis Schaefer, the great comedian, says this. It's the death of love. It's the death of love. People aren't meeting. They're not bonding. They're not having sex. They're not having babies.
It's the rise of porn. You've got to think about people going, there's no one going out with each other anymore. They've got porn on their phone. The desire to go out to meet a guy, desire to go out to meet a girl, you're like, I haven't got that desire now. I'm just going to watch Netflix and smoke some weed. Right. I'm not demonising the young people, but it's a different world than we grew up in. It sounds
like you're just describing an average Tuesday for
There you go.
But I mean, I feel like maybe we grew up in glorious times, because I grew up in the 90s. I don't know about yourselves, but it felt like a glorious time. Everybody got on. People weren't nagging each other and being pious and judging each other. People were just, getting on and having fun.
I think there's always been that. I think people have many more portals to put their piety or their nagging on, so I think we're more familiar with it. I'm not necessarily sure there is more of it. We'll just see it more.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to my panel tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the Saturday Night Showdown. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned tonight for the one and only Mark Dolan coming up next. And then later on, we've got Headliners at 11 p.m. with 3 comedians going through tomorrow's news stories. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. We're looking ahead to Sunday. For most of us, it's going to be very mild. There will be some wet and windy weather, however, across the north. So the reason for the mild conditions is we're dragging in some very mild air from parts of Spain and Portugal. And that will really move right across the country as we go through the course of Sunday. Back to the rest of Saturday, and for many parts of England and Wales, it's going to be a fairly dry night with the clearest of the skies over towards the east. Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing plenty of cloud, and that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce some spots of rain, but mild here. But under the clearer skies further east, we will see a touch of frost. But a bright start for the east as we start Sunday morning. Elsewhere, plenty of cloud, and again, there will be some spots of rain and drizzle around, but the cloud will tend to break up across many areas, so a bright afternoon with some sunny spells, but later on we start to see this band of rain move in across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, accompanied by some very strong winds here as we move into the afternoon. But in the sunshine, very mild for the time of year, could see highs reaching 15 to 16 degrees. And to Monday, really the country is split into half by this band of rain, so if you're stuck under here, it'll be quite a cold and wet day. To the north of it, cooler, blustery showers. To the south of it, remaining mild, but rather cloudy. Into the middle part of the week, it remains changeable, temperatures around where they should be for the time of year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel. Come and join me this Thursday in Scunthorpe live by scanning the QR code or going on gbnews.com to get your ticket for the event. We'll be discussing things like why the Green Agenda is risking jobs in places like Scunthorpe.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.